All right, it is Lambo's World of Sports featuring the Big Brother 50 Solid Sports Network. Like I said, we got a lot of college football to get to, but the ACC with Florida State and UNC, both teams are undefeated at 6-0. Looking at their schedule, I'm not sure if UNC will stay undefeated the rest of the year. That depends because I did slip up one against Georgia Tech last season. Florida State is dominant in all phases. Who's the best quarterback? Are you taking Drake May or are you taking Jordan Travis? Now, both of these guys are top tier quarterbacks, probably top tier Heisman's as well. But I think looking at Florida State's schedule, it looks like they'll roll through pretty easily to stay undefeated. My only concern in this schedule is probably Miami. That's going to be a little bit tough because it's a rivalry game, and of course Florida. Even though Florida's, they're 5-2 right now. I still think they're going to go 6-6, but rivalry games is not games you want to underestimate. They rolled through Syracuse 41-3. Syracuse, we thought they were a legit ACC team. They lost 3 games in a row. UNC dominated Miami. Like I said, Taz Walker, the NCAA didn't want to reinstate him for a while. He got 3 touchdowns, so that's a little bit of motivation. Drake May is still Drake May. I know next week they do play Virginia. They should beat Virginia because Virginia ain't good. They're not going to do it anytime soon. Tyler Van Dyke had a decent game, but when you have 2 interceptions, dude, I don't know what to really tell you. They had a good receiver and Xavier Westboro with 11 receptions, 96 yards for Miami. But when you have a total of 5 turnovers for Miami, including 2 fumbles, you're just not going to win. UNC Drake May, he played 4 touchdowns, no picks. Omarion Hampton running that ball, 197 yards rushing and 1 touchdown, 235 yards combined. I'm trying to tell you, UNC offense, they scary. Not only that, their defense has improved. I know y'all were bashing that defense last year. Y'all haters was bashing, UNC. They don't have a good defense. This year, their defense has stepped up. They have had no defensive problems. I understand they give up 31. That's a great Miami team on offense, but I'm not surprised UNC 6-0. I'm surprised that they improved their defense. All right, Gene Chizik, he's great. We had him on Totem Pole podcast. Like I said, what are your thoughts on this game? And what are your thoughts on both games with Florida State and Syracuse, and then of course Miami and UNC? What are your thoughts on both of those games? And who do you think is going to win the ACC? And like with the schedules I mentioned, who has a better chance of actually going undefeated?
Yeah, so obviously there's not much to talk about when it comes to the Syracuse game and FSU. That was, just an
not even close.
Old school ass whooping over there. That's what it is. And with the Miami game, it was pretty entertaining, or at least the condensed version of the game I watched after the Virginia Tech game. But when it comes to who I trust more to win the ACC. And in turn, because if they're both, when they're playing each other, they have a chance of both still being undefeated. So if that is the case, the ACC championship could be basically an entry into the college football playoff. We'll have to see. I don't know the rest of the schedules and stuff like that. But for these guys, obviously Duke next week for Florida State. They've got Miami on the 11th and Florida on the 25th. That's tough. Those are 3 tough games. Obviously, the Miami game and the Florida game are kind of like, or they're not kind of, they are like rivalry games. So those are going to have, the fans behind it. And I think the Florida game makes me a little nervous, but I think I'm pretty comfortable with them against Miami. Duke, I'm going to pick FSU over Duke whenever we do our predictions later in the week, but I definitely think that Duke has a fighting chance with that defense. It just depends on the quarterback situation, obviously. Yeah, what's up?
Actually, to go to the UNC, they have UVA, as you said, next week, but they could slip a point against Georgia Tech.
Yeah,
They have Duke as well, but also NC State's a rivalry game, but also they play Clemson. Now, we're not talking about Clemson a lot, but that could be 2 losses for UNC. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, yeah, that was literally the next bullet point of what I was going to read. They play Duke on the 11th, Clemson on the 18th. So that's back-to-back weeks of, hard-hitting teams you're going to have to play against. Obviously, UVA next week should be just a roll.
A walk in the park.
Yeah. And, Georgia Tech, like you mentioned, Georgia Tech won that game last year during UNC's fall at the end of the year. Then they play Campbell. That's going to be like a 65-0 game, something like that. What makes me very nervous, obviously, outside of so what I've got for these two teams when I was making my decision, because the offenses are very similar, the defenses are very similar as well. Florida State allows a little bit less points a game, but it's like 18-21 when it comes to points allowed. So the defenses are very similar, offense is very similar. Florida State has 3 highlighted games, in my opinion, and that's Duke, Miami, and Florida. UNC has 2 highlighted games in Duke and Clemson. In the highlighted games, I mean, these are high-level games. And so when it comes to Florida State, I am pretty comfortable in 2 of the 3, and I could see them maybe dropping 1. Their games outside of that is Wake Forest. They're going to whoop their ass. Pitt, they're going to whoop their ass. And then North Alabama, which they shouldn't even show up. So I can see here a 1 loss. I can see 1 loss from their remaining games. But then I go down to UNC and I see 2 highlighted games in Duke and Clemson. And then they have UVA, should be a win. Georgia Tech, you never know because Georgia Tech won last year. They'll beat Campbell. And then they have NC State. Now, NC State has won 2 in a row in this rivalry, and they've won 6 of the last 10. So during UNC's come up of being a good team, which they have now been for probably like 5 years, they have lost this rivalry game multiple times. Like I said, 6 of the past 10. So I'm just more nervous about UNC's highlighted games plus that extra game that on Florida State side, they're not nervous about. They're going to win those non-highlighted games. Whereas on the UNC side, you can see, a fluke with Georgia Tech again, or NC State still continuing to own that rivalry. So I know that's a long-winded answer, but I had to think it all out when I was writing my notes. So who do I think will win the ACC? I think it will be Florida State. I see too many landmines on UNC's schedule. So regular season wise, I think Florida State wins. And if UNC only loses 1 in the ACC, I can see them playing Florida State. And when it comes to that specific game, I don't know right now.
Well, I think even if they lose 1 or 2 games, the ACC doesn't have conference this year. I don't think there's no conference,
Division.
Well, not conference, excuse me, divisions. There's no divisions anymore. I didn't even say conference. I'm a dumbass. I meant to say divisions. There's just no more divisions. So I guess it's whoever has the best record in the ACC and whatnot. By the way, we'll talk about Tech later. They're 2-1 in the ACC. But if they win the rest of the games, I don't think they can sleep. They could, but that depends if everybody else just drops. But I'm just not buying that just yet. I don't want to get my hopes too high about Virginia Tech. But I agree with you on every point. Florida State is the best team to win the ACC, also get into the college football playoff. I'm not going to say they're going to win the championship because you still got Georgia and Michigan to deal with. I think they could beat Ohio State. If Ohio State stays stuck in the top 3, I think they could beat them. But I think the best team that I trust, and also the quarterbacks that I trust, Drake Maye's a great quarterback, great Heisman candidate. So is Jordan Travis. But the quarterback that I trust I trust Jordan Travis over Drake May. Is that I know you don't probably like that, but do you take Drake May over Jordan Travis?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, it depends kind of on the question a little bit. So, are we talking about who would I take like in a draft first? Which quarterback would I take to like start my franchise with?
Yeah, we could do that question. Who would you take, Drake May or Jordan Travis?
Yeah, I would take Drake. So just from like a no stats or anything involved, just them. Drake is 2 years younger, and he's already playing at an equal, if not higher level of football. He's 3 inches taller. He's 6'4", 230 pounds. Jordan is 23, 6'1", 210. So he's not a bad stature or anything. It's just when you're next to someone that's 6'4", 230, it's a little bit different. And then getting into the stats of it, Drake is just a better thrower of the football than Jordan is. Accuracy wise, this year he's just under 70% at like 69 point something. He's got 1,900 yards, 12 touchdowns to 4 interceptions, 159 rating. And then he does add a decent amount on the ground. This year, not as much as last year so far, but he's got 185 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. You look at last year, he was still at 66% passing, 4,300 yards, which is insane. 38 touchdowns to 7 picks, a 157 rating. He had 700 yards on the ground to 7 touchdowns. And then just comparing that to Travis, he's got 400 less yards this year. He's at 63%. Now he doesn't turn the ball over. I will give Jordan credit in that regard. Drake doesn't really turn it over either. Drake hasn't thrown an interception since September 16th. So like a month from today, actually, he hasn't thrown an interception. But Jordan, to his credit, he's only thrown one this year. Similar rating, a little bit less in the rushing attack. And then you go back to last year, it's the same type of deal. He had 1,000 less passing yards. He had 14 less touchdowns, similar rating, and 200 less rushing yards. So I just think if I'm building around it and I'm looking at these stats and then I'm looking at the metrics of the quarterbacks themselves, Drake's younger and he's already playing better. He's bigger. And, like academically, this isn't to shit on FSU. They are a good school, but academically, Chapel Hill is very, very top tier. So that you're not getting you're getting, and I'm sure Jordan is a genius as well. I don't want this to go the wrong way, but I think that, when it comes to smart young quarterbacks taking over, I think a UNC grad is a pretty good way to go.
I think I agree. I'm still gonna take my Jordan Travis case. I think if I was in the draft, they drafted in 2024, which is 6 months from now or 7 months after March and whatnot. I think Drake May would be drafted higher than Jordan Travis. Now, Jordan Travis has been through a lot at FSU. I mean, with the whole rebuilding system, he's still a very consistent quarterback. Now, we didn't talk about him because Florida State was losing. Now they're winning, but we've seen enough of Drake May where he was a Heisman candidate last year, just that Caleb Williams, won. He was a Heisman candidate the year before. I guess somebody else won. So he's been in the Heisman candidate multiple times. I think he'll be a first rounder this year. I think if I'm the GMs of the NFL drafting Jordan Travis, I hate to say it, he might be a second or third round. It just depends on the team because there's a lot of quarterbacks, and we put him in the top 5, but there's a lot of quarterbacks you mentioned. Drake May is already up there. Caleb Williams, if he wants to go, we're not sure. We won't figure that out until probably the end of the season. You got Bo Nix has been there for a while. Michael Penix has been there for a while. So it's a lot of top-tier quarterbacks, and I feel like through the NFL's perspective and the GMs that Jordan Travis is probably like the best of 6, which is just it sucks, but it's just fact. He's the best of 6. But I mean, it is what it is. And I think Jordan Travis will probably have a great NFL career. I can't tell. We won't know until we see evidence.
He's gotta be a better just passer. Like he's good at making decisions and stuff like that. Obviously,
you what more accurate.
Yeah, like it's just being a little bit better of a thrower. And it really could just like be like he needs the next level of coaching. Because like you look at Anthony Richardson, and I know he's probably
I said he wasn't that good in Florida, and I'm not bashing him. But when I watched Florida, I mean they were 6-6. And I'm like, what made you think he was a fourth round? A fourth pick of the job? Like Anthony Richardson. Did Florida go 6-6 last year?
Yeah, but then you go and you look at what he did before, he got hurt, and he's probably going to be out for the rest of the year. But the throws that he makes are like pro level throws, and like he has evolved very quickly as a passer from a guy that was throwing under 60% in college. I understand his percentage isn't the absolute greatest before he got hurt, but it was surprising, I think, a little bit to how like the expectation of like if you're throwing under 60% in college, I hate to tell you, like you're maybe hitting 50% in the NFL. Like you might be in the 40s. So to see him not struggle as bad as his college tape would make you assume was encouraging, and it could be a similar case for Jordan Travis, where he is a better passer now than Anthony Richardson was at Florida. And maybe that next level of coaching will help bring it along. It's just the difference is Jordan has been in college since 2018, whereas it's just based off of a GM. If you're drafting someone, you want to go youth first. And, someone that's been in, Drake last year was his first year as a starter. The year before that, he was a true freshman, and now he's a redshirt sophomore. So like that's the difference.
Well, in the next episode of Lambo's World of Sports, recap rest of college football. Oregon, why did you not punt the ball? I mean, you went for it on 4th and 6 at the 50 midfield, and then Washington had an easy drive for a touchdown. I'm blaming coaching on that. There was a lot of coaching errors this weekend, not only in college, but in the NFL. It's a lot of dumb decisions. I mean, I get that analytics is a thing, but I mean, you just got to have common sense. And I feel like common sense wasn't involved in the Oregon game. It was great competition. It was over, I guess, over 60. And the bet thing, I forgot to put in my bet, by the way. But that's the case. Not only that, Michigan found a formula to win. Now I understand they played garbage teams and all this other stuff. I get that. Michigan does have a chance to win a national championship. Georgia's still up there, but Brock Bryers, I think, is out for 4 to 6 weeks with the injury he suffered against Vanderbilt. So I'm not doubting Georgia, but when you don't have the best tight end in the game, it's not going to end well. Both brothers were at the Blacksburg game, and Virginia Tech does what Virginia Tech does. The defense, 4 turnovers. They stopped I wouldn't say they're ass on the offense. They stopped a very good, offensive team, Wake Forest. Wake Forest was not ass coming into the game. But I mean, Wake Forest was 3-2. We thought they had Clemson beat a couple weeks ago, but that defense had 8 sacks, 3-4 turnovers. Woo! Kyron Jones is the answer. Thank you, Brent Pry, for not putting in another quarterback that I do not like. So that will be talked about later. By the way, Virginia Tech has a bye week, so I will have to wait until next Tuesday to get the tickets for Syracuse. And like I said, the night games are better. I'm not hating on Tech fans or nothing. I love Tech fans, but the atmosphere just from watching the game, it wasn't the same as the Pittsburgh game. Like that in the Sandman, it was great. But the night games hit hella different than the 3:30 games. I've been to a 3:30 game before, so am I ungrateful? We got the win. I'm excited. Man, we had 500 yards of offense, but we're going to talk about the next level of sports. We'll catch you later. Goodbye. Adios. How about